And welcome back to a new video, new time to learn something new. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The spiritual dimension. Renewing the spiritual dimension provides leadership to your life. It's highly related to habit too. The spiritual dimension is your core, your center, your commitment to your value system. It's a very prior area of life and a supremely important one. It draws upon the sources that inspire and uplift you and to tie you to the timeless truths of all humanity, and people do it very differently. I find renewal in daily prayerful meditation on the scriptures because they represent my value system. As I read and meditate, I feel renewed, strengthened, centered, and recommitted to serve. Immersion is great literature or great music can provide a similar renewal of the spirit for some. There are others who find it in the way they communicate with nature. Nature bequeaths its own blessing on those who immerse themselves in it. When you're able to leave the noise and the discard of the city and give yourself up to the harmony and rhythm of nature, you come back renewed. For a time, you are undisturbable, almost unflappable, until gradually the noise and discard from outside start to invade that sense of inner peace. Arthur Gordon shares a wonderful and intimate story of his own spiritual renewal in a little story called The Turn of the Tide. It tells of a time in his life when he began to feel that everything was stale and flat. His enthusiasm waned, his writing efforts were fruitless, and the situation was growing worse day by day. Finally, he determined to get help from a medical doctor. Observing nothing physically wrong, the doctor asked him if he would be able to follow his instructions for one day. When Gordon replied that he could, the doctor told him to spend the following day in the place where he was happiest as a child. He could take food, but he was not to talk to anyone or to read or write or listen to the radio. He then wrote out four prescriptions and told him to open one at 9, 12, 3, and at 6 o'clock. Are you serious? Gordon asked him. You won't think I'm joking when you get my bill, was the reply. So the next morning, Jordan went to the beach. As he opened the first prescription, he read, Listen carefully. He thought the doctor was insane. How would he listen for 3 hours? But he had agreed to follow the doctor's orders, so he listened. He heard the usual sounds of the sea and the birds. After a while, he would hear the other sounds that weren't so apparent at first. As he listened, he began to think of lessons that sea had taught him as a child patience, respect, and awareness of interdependence of things. He began to listen to the sounds and the silence and to feel a growing peace. At noon, he opened the second slip of paper and read, Try reaching back. Reaching back to what? He wondered. Perhaps to childhood, perhaps the memories of happy times. He thought about his past, about the many little moments of joy. He tried to remember them with exactness, and in remembering, he found a growing warmth inside. At 3 o'clock, he opened the third piece of paper. Until now, the prescriptions had been easy to take, but this one was different. It said, Examine your motives. At first, he was defensive. He thought about what he wanted success, recognition, security, and he justified them all. But then the thought occurred to him that those motives weren't good enough and that perhaps therein was the answer to his stagnant situation. He considered his motives deeply. He thought about past happiness, and at last the answer came to him. In a flash of certainty, he wrote, I saw that if one's motives are wrong, nothing can be right. It makes no difference whether you are a mailman, a hairdresser, an insurance salesman, a housewife, whatever. As long as you feel you are serving others, you do the job well. When you are concerned only with helping yourself, you do it less well. A law as inexorable as gravity. When 6 o'clock came, the final prescription didn't take long to fill. Write your worries on the sand. And it said. He knelt and wrote several words with a piece of broken shell. Then he turned and walked away. He didn't look back. He knew the tide would come in. Spiritual renewal takes an investment of time, but it's a quadrant 2 activity. We don't really have time to neglect. The great reformer Martin Luther is quoted as saying, "I have so much to do today, need to spend another hour on my knees." To him, prayer was not a mechanical duty, but rather a source of power in releasing and multiplying his energies. Someone was inquired of Someone once inquired of a Eastern Zen master who had a great certainty and peace about him no matter what pressures he faced. "How do you maintain that certainty and peace?" He replied. "I never leave my place of meditation." He meditated early in the morning, and for the rest of the day, he carried the peace of those moments with him in his mind and heart. The idea is that when we take time to draw on the leadership center of our lives, what life is ultimately all about, it spreads like an umbrella over everything else. It renews us, it refreshes us, particularly if we recommit to it. This is why I believe a personal mission statement is so important. If we have a deep understanding of our center and our purpose, we can review and recommit to it frequently. In our daily spiritual renewal, we can visualize and live out the events of the day in harmony with those values. Religious leader David O. McKay taught, "The greatest battles of life are fought out daily in the silent chambers of the soul. If you win the battles there, if you settle the issues that inwardly conflict, you feel a sense of peace, a sense of knowing what you're about. And you'll find that the public victories where you tend to think cooperatively to promote the welfare and good of other people and to be genuinely happy for others people's success will follow naturally." The mental dimension. Most of our mental development and study discipline comes through formal education, but as soon as we leave the external discipline of school, many of us let our minds atrophy. We don't do any more serious reading. We don't explore new subjects in any real depth outside our action fields. We don't think analytically. We don't write, at least not critically or in a way that tests our ability to express ourselves in distilled, clear, and concise language. Instead, we spend our time watching TV. Continuing surveys indicate that television is on in most homes some 35 to 45 hours a week. That's as much time as many people put into their jobs, more than most people into put more than most put into school. It's the most powerful socializing influence there is, and when we watch, we're subject to all the values that are being taught through it that can powerfully influence us in very subtle and imperceptibly ways. Wisdom in watching television requires the effective self-management of habit 3, which enables you to discriminate and to select the informing, inspiring, and entertaining programs that best serve and express your purpose and values. In our family, we limit television watching to around 7 hours a week, an average of about an hour a day. We had a family council at which we talked about it and looked at some of the data regarding what's happening in homes because of television. We found that by discussing it as a family, when no one was defensive or argumentative, people started to realize that dependent sickness of becoming addicted to soap operas or to a steady diet of a particular program. I'm grateful for television for many high quality educational and entertainment programs. They can enrich our lives and contribute and goals. Meaningfully to our purposes and goals. But there are many programs that simply waste our time and minds, and many that influence us in negative ways if we let them. Like the body. Television is a good servant but a poor master. We need to practice habit 3 and manage ourselves effectively to maximize the use of any resource in accomplishing our missions. Education, continuing honing and expanding the mind is vital mental renewal. Sometimes that involves the external discipline of the classroom or systemized study programs. More often it does not. Proactive people can figure out many ways to educate themselves. It is extremely valuable to train the mind to stand apart and examine its own program. That to me is the definition of a liberal education, the ability to examine the programs of life against larger questions and purposes and other paradigms. Training without such education narrows and closes the mind so that the assumptions underlying the training are never examined. That's why it's so valuable to read broadly and to expose yourself to great minds. There's no better way to inform and expand your mind on a regular basis than to get into the habit of reading good literature. There's another high leverage quadrant 2 activity. You can get into the best minds that are now or that have ever been in the world. I highly recommend starting with a goal of a book a month, then a book every 2 weeks, then a book a week. The person who doesn't read is no better off than the person who can't read. Quality literature such as the great books, the Harvard Classics, autobiographies, National Geographic, and other publications that expand our cultural awareness, and current literature in various fields can expand our paradigms and sharpen our mental saw, particularly if we practice habit 5 as we read and seek first to understand. If we use our own autobiography to make early judgments before we really understand what an author has to say, we limit the benefit of the reading experience. Writing is another powerful way to sharpen the mental saw. Keeping a journal of our thoughts, experiences, insights, and learning promotes mental clarity, exactness, and context. Reading Writing good letters, communicating on the deeper level of thoughts, feelings, and ideas rather than on the shallow, superficial level of events, also affects our ability to think clearly, to reason accurately, and to be understood effectively. Organizing and planning represent other forms of mental renewal associated with habits 2 and 3. It's beginning with the end in mind and eh, being able mentally to organize to accomplish that end. It's exercising the visualizing and imaging power of your mind to see the end from the beginning and to see the entire journey, at least in principles, if not in steps. It is said that wars are won in the general tense. Sharpening the saw in the first three paradigms, the physical, the spiritual, and mental, is a practice I call the daily private victory. And I comment to the simple practice of spending 1 hour a day every day doing it. 1 hour a day for the rest of your life. There's no other way you could spend an hour that would begin to compare with the victory daily private victory in terms of value and results. It will affect every decision, every relationship. It will greatly improve the quality, the effectiveness of every other hour of the day, including the depth and restfulness of your sleep. It will build the long term physical, spiritual, and mental strength to enable you to handle difficult challenges in life. In the words of Phillips Brooks, someday in the years to come, you'll be wrestling with the great temptation or trembling under the great sorrow of your life. But the real struggle is here, now. Now it is being decided whether, in the day of your supreme sorrow or temptation, you shall miserably fail or gloriously conquer. Character cannot be made except by a steady, long, continued process. I'll take a pause there. We'll talk both spiritually and mentally, both dimensions. Um, First, to talk about the spiritual dimension, to kind of go back and um, think about what that really meant. For me, it was um, the big one for me was peace, right? Especially, the example being said by, taking yourself out the city and allowing yourself to go out to nature, to breathe fresh air, to let your mind think, to let your mind wander, is another way to really cleanse yourself out. We all live very high, stressful lives. We all go through very different things. But if we can control ourselves to say, hey, I know I'm in a very difficult situation, but I'm going to take the time to pray. I'm going to take the time to meditate. I'm going to take the time to walk. I'm going to take the time to step myself out of the situation that I'm going through and just let my mind and body breathe, is super beneficial to not only your mental health, perhaps even your physical health, but your spiritual health, right? Um, Peace is such a powerful word. Um, yeah, I mean, what a great way to, even the example that was being said about, when he went out to go next to the sea, and all the different questions was being expressed about, you know, um, listen, or write your worries on the sand. All those different things is super, insightful for sure. Going on to the mental dimension, um, to me, this was don't let the mind stop from learning. Don't let the mind stop from improving. And I think it talked about education and all those different things about reading, reading good literature, but keeping the mind active. Don't be stagnant in life. Don't limit yourself to thinking that you already are smart or you're not capable of learning new things. Take the initiative to read more books, to listen to other people perhaps that are at a different level of perhaps knowledge or experiences. And most companies talk about this, but most authors talk about this as well, as continuously being curious in life, whether it be in your own aspect, in your own personal life, but others things out in the world, to continue being curious. So I think physical, spiritual, and mental health are three combinations of. There's still one more, but those three have really hit it home. And there's one more to go. So we'll finish that off tomorrow. Mind you, you know, we don't got much left, right? So we're keeping pushing, and I hope you guys are keeping pushing too. See ya.